Would you still call them family if they never showed up to say goodbye? When Helen Ward stood alone at her husband's funeral, the silence was deafening, not from grief, but from absence. No children, no flowers, no voices calling her Mom, just the cold wind whispering what she already knew. She had been forgotten, but grief can do strange things. It can break you, or it can wake you. What if one day a woman decided not to wait for love that never returns? Tell us in the comments. Would you forgive, or finally choose peace? The snow fell in slow, deliberate flakes, as if time itself had decided to move gently for her. Helen Ward stood beneath the arch of the small country chapel, her black gloves trembling as she gripped the edge of her husband's coffin. The air inside smelled faintly of lilies and cold wood polish. 5 rows of pews stood empty. The echo of the pastor's voice faded before it even reached the walls. George would have hated this silence, she thought. He was never one for quiet. Every morning he used to hum the same off-key tune while folding the newspaper, claiming it helped him think. And now, in his final hour, not even their children had come to hum along. When the service ended, the funeral director approached awkwardly, his eyes darting toward the door as though expecting guests who never arrived. "Would you like to wait a few more minutes, Mrs. Ward?" he whispered. Helen's voice was steady. "No, George was never late. We'll start." The coffin was lowered as the wind pushed against her coat. She didn't cry. There were no tears left for disappointment, only a deep stillness inside her chest, like a lake frozen solid. Back home, the house felt too large. She left her coat on the chair, the television flickering weakly in the corner. A news anchor spoke of politics and storms, but the only reflection on the screen was her own, pale, small, and unfamiliar. She poured herself tea, but it cooled untouched. Her phone buzzed twice, once from Laura, once from Michael. Laura's post, "Brunch with the girls, needed this." Michael's, "Another deal closed, proud of this team." Helen's thumb hovered over the screen before she simply locked it again. She looked toward the armchair where George used to sit, slippers neatly aligned beneath it, the newspaper folded just so. The quiet in the room pressed against her like a weight. Then, with a sudden breath, she stood and walked to George's old desk. The drawer slid open with a soft creak, releasing the faint scent of cedar and paper. Inside lay a stack of envelopes, old letters, and, at the bottom, a brown folder labeled Estate. Helen traced her fingers over it. Her eyes glimmered, not with tears, but with the flicker of something sharper. Purpose. "All right, George," she whispered. "This time I'll do it my way." The wind outside howled, as though it had heard her. Fade out. Morning came gray and hushed, the kind of silence that seeps through window panes and lingers in the corners of a house too large for one. Helen poured herself a cup of tea, though she no longer drank it for taste, only for the ritual of holding something warm. Outside, the rose garden lay buried beneath frost. Every stem had once been planted by George's hands. Now they stood like rows of ghosts, brittle and bowed, waiting for a spring that might never return. Her phone buzzed on the counter. Laura's name flashed first. "Hi, Mom. Just checking in. How are you holding up?" Her voice was bright, almost cheerful, like she was calling from another world. Helen could hear laughter in the background, the clinking of cups and a waiter asking, "Refill?" Helen said softly, "I'm fine." "That's good. I'll call again soon, okay? Love you." The line went dead before Helen could answer. Moments later, a message appeared from Michael. Busy morning meeting. Love you, Mom. No punctuation. No questions. Just a transaction of words sent out of duty. Helen set the phone down carefully, as though afraid it might shatter from the weight of what wasn't said. She stared at the steam curling from her untouched tea and thought how grief could turn into something quieter, something like resignation. Her eyes drifted toward George's old desk. The folder from last night still sat where she'd left it, brown against the white of the lace runner. She opened it again. Inside were the official papers, signatures, account numbers, neatly typed names. Michael Ward, Laura Ward, the house, the cabin by the lake, the savings account, all neatly listed, all marked with the same ink of habit. Helen's hand hovered above the page. The nib of the pen trembled. For a moment, she imagined George's voice behind her, soft and measured. You always take care of everyone, Helen. Don't forget to take care of yourself. She closed her eyes, inhaled slowly, and looked out the window. Snow had begun to fall again, drifting over the rose garden, erasing even the thorns. Her gaze steadied, calm, certain. Perhaps, she thought, it was time to prune what no longer blooms. The wind carried the scent of paper and winter as Helen pushed open the door to Mr. Collins's law office. The small brass bell above the frame chimed softly, a familiar sound from decades ago when she and George had sat here signing the deed to their first home. Now, only she remained to change what they once built together. Mr. Collins looked up from behind his desk, his silver glasses slipping slightly down his nose. Helen Ward, he greeted, his tone a mix of warmth and surprise. It's been a while. I'm sorry about George. She nodded. Thank you, Paul. I'm not here about condolences. He gestured for her to sit. Then what can I do for you? Helen placed the folder on the polished mahogany. I want to revise the will. He opened it carefully, his eyes scanning the familiar names. What changes would you like to make? Remove both of them, she said. He paused, pen hovering. Both? As in Michael and Laura? Yes. Silence filled the room, not heavy but respectful. He had known her children as toddlers, had attended their graduation parties. You're certain? Helen's gaze didn't waver. Completely. They've already taken all that mattered from their father. His time, his love, his last goodbye. I won't give them what's left. And the estate? He asked softly. She hesitated only a heartbeat. Transfer it to my granddaughter, Emma Ward. Set it up so she can't be pressured by her mother or uncle. She's the only one who came without being asked. Mr. Collins nodded, jotting notes with quiet precision. I can draft an amendment today. You'll just need to sign. As she signed her name, Helen felt something loosen inside her chest. Not joy, not revenge, but release. The pen glided across the paper like a quiet farewell to years of unreturned devotion. When it was done, Mr. Collins looked up. You've done a hard thing, Helen. She managed a faint smile. No, for once, I've done an honest thing. Outside, the wind stung her cheeks, but she didn't shiver. She stood beneath the pale winter sky, breathing in the cold, realizing how strange freedom could feel after a lifetime of endurance. Perhaps, she thought, this was the first thing she'd ever done entirely for herself. The knock came mid-morning, brisk, impatient, and unmistakably familiar. Helen didn't rush to open it. She folded the dish towel in her hands twice, then again, before finally walking to the door. Laura stood there in a beige wool coat, Sunglasses perched on her head like a crown. A designer purse hung from her wrist, heavy with self-importance. "Mom," she breathed out, stepping inside before being invited. "You look tired. Have you been eating?" Helen closed the door softly behind her. "Enough to stay alive." Laura exhaled dramatically. "I couldn't come to the funeral. You know how I get seeing coffins. It's too much." Helen's voice was calm. "No, darling. You didn't come because you didn't want to see yourself in that coffin." Laura blinked, the words landing like a mirror she didn't want to look into. "That's unfair," she muttered, glancing away, but she didn't stay long. She talked about work, a new yoga class, the weather in Florida. Then she left, perfume lingering where her remorse should have been. That evening, the wind picked up again, brushing the windows with restless fingers. Helen brewed tea but didn't drink it. She had grown used to silence. It no longer asked for explanations. The next morning brought another knock, softer this time, rehearsed. Michael stood at the door in his pressed overcoat, his wife beside him, a woman with a smile too polished to be kind. "Mom," he said, tone measured, "you look well." Helen nodded. "And you look practiced." He smiled, pretending not to hear. "I didn't come to the service because I couldn't stand to see you in pain." She looked at him, steady and unblinking. "No, Michael, you didn't come because you didn't want to feel anything real." He swallowed, the mask slipping for just a moment. His wife placed a manicured hand on his arm. "It's been hard for all of us," she offered smoothly. Helen didn't answer. They stayed just long enough to make it seem proper, then left, their car tires crunching over the gravel drive like an afterthought. Helen stood by the window, watching the snow swirl back over their tracks until the driveway was blank again. Then she turned to the table, to the folder waiting there, the new will, and allowed herself the faintest smile. The snow had thinned to a quiet shimmer by the time Emma arrived. Her small blue car hummed up the driveway, headlights slicing through the gray afternoon. Helen watched from the window, a cup of jasmine tea warming her palms. She hadn't realized how empty the house had sounded until now, until she heard footsteps again on the porch. The door opened before she could reach it. "Grandma!" Emma's voice carried that same spark it had when she was a child. She rushed in, arms full of grocery bags, cheeks flushed from the cold. "I brought soup, your favorite rolls, and..." She lifted a small bouquet of white tulips. "Hope you still like these." Helen smiled, that soft, slow kind of smile that starts in the heart before it reaches the face. "I never stopped." The kettle whistled faintly as Emma unpacked the food. The two of them moved around the kitchen easily, like two halves of a song that finally found each other again. They ate by the window, talking about simple things, her classes, the neighbor's dog, the way snow sometimes looks like falling stars. At one point, Emma reached across the table and placed her hand over her grandmother's. "I know Mom and Uncle Michael, they don't understand, but I do. You don't owe them your peace." Helen's eyes glistened, though she didn't look away. "Oh, my dear, peace isn't something people give you. It's something you decide to keep." After dinner, they went outside to the garden. The air was crisp and sharp, but Emma didn't mind. She helped her grandmother brush snow from the old rose bushes, the ones her grandfather had planted long ago. Beneath the frost, tiny buds hid, sleeping, waiting. Helen knelt slowly beside them, her knees stiff but steady. "You see, Emma," she whispered, They always look dead in winter, but they're not. They're just resting before the bloom." Emma smiled. "Like people." Helen nodded, her breath forming soft clouds in the cold. "Exactly." As they walked back inside, the candlelight flickered in the window. Two silhouettes, one old and one young, side by side. Outside, the roses slept, but hope had already begun to stir. The storm began long before they knocked. Helen had felt it coming. The tension carried on every unanswered call and every whispered rumor that somehow made its way back to her. But still, when the doorbell rang that cold afternoon, the sound cut through the house like a blade. Laura entered first, her heels striking the floor like small explosions. Behind her came Michael, slower, his jaw tight, eyes darting to every corner of the room as if searching for proof of betrayal. "So it's true," Laura began, her voice trembling between outrage and disbelief. "You actually changed the will. You erased us." Helen didn't rise. She sat at the table with a cup of tea cooling beside her. "I didn't erase anyone. I simply remembered myself." Michael stepped forward. "Mom, we're your children. You can't just hand everything to Emma. She's a kid. She doesn't understand responsibility." Helen looked up, her gaze calm, steady. "And yet, she understands love better than either of you." Laura's hands clenched around the back of a chair. "We've always been there for you," she snapped. "Paid visits, sent gifts." Helen's voice cut through the air, low but unshakable. "Yes, you sent flowers on birthdays you forgot, and cards signed by assistants. You showed up when it looked respectable, but when your father died, you stayed home, because grief doesn't photograph well, does it?" The words hung heavy, like thunder rolling over a frozen field. Michael's wife tried to speak, but stopped when Helen's eyes met hers. "I'm not angry," Helen continued. "I'm simply finished." For a long moment, no one spoke. The wind outside howled through the cracks of the door, carrying the sound of the season changing. Then Laura turned sharply, tears streaking her mascara. "You'll regret this," she said. Helen's reply was soft. "Regret is what happens when you live for someone else's approval. I've done enough of that." The door slammed, and the echo faded into silence. A few seconds later, a gentle knock followed, hesitant, familiar. Emma stood there, eyes wide, unsure if she should enter. Helen reached out and took her hand. "Don't worry, dear," she whispered, her voice steady despite the storm still raging in the air. "Never let anyone make you beg to be loved." Outside, the wind began to quiet. Somewhere deep in the garden, under the snow, something was beginning to breathe again. The air smelled different after the storm, softer, cleaner, as if the world itself had decided to forgive. The morning light crept gently across Helen's wooden floorboards, tracing the quiet order of her small, lived-in life. In the garden beyond the window, the snow had begun to retreat, leaving damp soil ready to be touched again. Emma arrived early, her boots squeaking on the porch. "Grandma," she said, lifting two spades with a grin, "it's time." Helen nodded, already wearing her gardening gloves. The two stepped outside together, the chill brushing their cheeks but not their spirits. The garden was still half asleep, branches bare, the air carrying that faint scent of thawing earth, a promise. They worked in silence for a while. Helen loosened the soil where George's roses once grew, and Emma followed, planting new stems with careful hands. Each stroke of the spade felt like a breath, steady and sure, turning grief into rhythm. "You know," Emma said quietly, "Mom called me last night. She was crying." Helen didn't stop working. I hope one day she'll learn that love isn't measured by inheritance. Emma pressed the earth around a root, thoughtful. Do you think she ever will? Helen looked up, her face calm, no bitterness left. Maybe, but forgiveness isn't waiting for others to change. It's freeing yourself from needing them to. For a while, there was only the sound of soil shifting, the wind threading through the old fence. The sun began to dip, painting everything gold. Emma straightened, brushing her gloves. Grandma, do you ever regret any of it? Helen smiled, lines softening around her eyes. No, darling, I only regret not choosing peace sooner. At that moment, Emma gasped. Between them, a single rosebud had broken through the earth, fragile, defiant, burning red against the pale ground. Helen bent down, touching its edge with reverence. George, she whispered, you see it, don't you? The garden's blooming again. The wind lifted, carrying her words across the yard. Snowflakes drifted lazily from the sky, melting as they touched the rose's petals, red on white, life within winter. The camera would pull back then, 2 figures in the golden light, the garden alive again, and the house behind them glowing with quiet strength. And for the first time, Helen no longer felt alone. She felt reborn. Sometimes, God doesn't send thunder to change our lives. He sends a whisper. It might come as a letter, a warm hand reaching out, or a rose blooming through the snow. For Helen, that whisper was peace. The kind that grows when you stop waiting to be loved and start living as if you already are. May this story remind you that no season is too cold for grace to find you. If this touched your heart, share it with someone who needs a little light today. Leave a comment, subscribe, and help us spread kindness one story at a time. May God bless you, and may your own garden of faith bloom again, even in winter.